This episode of the Magma podcast, we're hosting the one and only Jessica Drew Johnson. She's a senior 3D artist in the cinematics team at Blizzard Entertainment and has contributed her incredible talents to titles like World of Warcraft, Overwatch, Diablo, and Starcraft. She spends her free time sculpting and costuming and has this exceptional ability to bring creative people together and pull the art off the screen into a massive collection of her creative collaborations and visions for costumes, set designs, and amazing photography. Check out her Instagram link in the description to see more of what I mean. Jessica is a Magma user. She's a titan in the CG industry, and in this conversation, she provides a ton of valuable insights into her creative process and tips for success. Drop us a like and subscribe if you enjoy this content, and stay tuned. Already starting our conversation.
Yeah, oops.
There's so much to talk about, but I did want to give you a chance to introduce you.
Okay.
You just sat with David Levy, and for the Magma people out there that are watching the stream and people that will be watching, tell us a little bit about your work experience and what your focus is these days professionally.
Oh, right on. Well, my name is Jessica Drew. I work for Blizzard Entertainment. I'm on the cinematics team, and specifically my team within the team is for all of the in-game cinematics, either using the engine or pre-rendered, but making it look like it's a part of the game, but creating stories and movies within it. I'm the lead character modeler. I spend most of my time on World of Warcraft, but I have worked on Diablo and Overwatch, and back in the day, Starcraft. I've done all of those things. My time each day professionally is spent as, just character modeling, which is a concentration of like character topology, character design, making things have high fidelity for the emotional content of these movies that we're creating. But then also I get to have a creative input because we're creating these unique characters within a expensive story. World of Warcraft is huge. There's so many characters, so many quest lines. So we're deciding which NPCs to like highlight within the overarching world story. And so I get to have like a lot of creative input on making those guys look unique and interesting or epic, and bringing some stuff up to date. So I do a lot of stylized texture painting on top of that. So I do everything from the modeling, the topology, the sculpting, the high-res definition, the texture, and then the material setup and whatnot that's then handed off to like rigging and animation downstream. I'm a little bit more generalist than most modelers are these days, but I really rather enjoy having my hands in a lot of the pipeline, and I really like my job. I like what I get to do. I like the stories I get to be a part of.
I've always known you as a woman of many, many, many hats. And you always have this ability to just, all of that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it is. So since we started working from home, I've had to start training up other artists to do what I do, or to join me on these different shows and bring them in to my pipeline and kind of try to distill a lot of this stuff into what they're good at. A lot of the artists that are being hired on in the cinematics team, so VFX in general, they tend to be actual modelers where the skill set starts with poly modeling, sculpting, and ends with delivering that off to a surfacing team. Now, Blizzard, the pre-rendered pipeline is exactly the same as that. So I, a lot of the times, actually have to start teaching people how to texture paint, and that's a rarer skill, a more rare skill.
Sure. A more rarer skill.
Yeah, exactly, more rarer. And one of the most interesting things is talking about texture painting as it pertains to like World of Warcraft or the stylized version. So like Overwatch, World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, the stylized feel of these Blizzard properties is very painterly. And talking about like, hey, what does painterly mean as a digital artist? And just being like, hey, do you ever use acrylics? Do you ever paint in your spare time? And really just getting to open up this artist to, a lot of the times, back to their art school experiences and taking them back and maybe kind of pulling from some of the more traditional aspects of art and bringing it forward into production.
How many of those students actually have experience in those things?
Well, it depends on where they're coming from and how focused they were on in getting into the industry. But almost every single artist I know does have a history of trying a little bit of everything with watercolors, acrylics, and oils. How far they took it is a whole other story. And a lot of times, their whole like school experience is like, I'm going to be a badass 3D modeler. And so they sort of like allow themselves to set all of those other things aside to concentrate on the skill that they're aiming towards, but then to get the job, to be working in the show and have a moment to be like, hey, I need you to spend about a month reacquainting yourself with these skills, and let's talk. Here's the brushes that I really like using. And I mean, I have to bring people into Photoshop for texturing, which isn't the mainstream for students these days. A lot of everybody is in Substance Painter, but I like seeing what a student, they're not a student anymore, but like an artist would then, like, well, how would you approach a painterly design over in Substance Painter? When I use Substance Painter, that's not what I'm using Substance for.
Right.
But what do they use it for? And I like seeing their perspective because, honestly, like, I haven't been in school in a long time. And so if they've got a better approach for it, I want to leave myself open enough to learn from the people that are coming into my industry. We've been super fortunate. We had an intern that we just hired on full-time, or temp. No, she was an intern. She is hired on our team. It is a contract length of a thing, but fingers crossed me to get a keeper forever. I really appreciate her. Her name's Anushka. She's wonderful. And then we've got some other artists that had spent maybe a year at another game studio and then came to us. And they're so in touch with what students are learning and open to trying a lot of new tools that us hardened veterans do not. I like seeing their approach to my problems that they might solve with the skill set that better suits them.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and it's very gracious and amazing to hear of such a creative brand being so open to, I guess, flexible changes and creative input from people that are coming into the studio. That the culture seems to be very, very strong at Blizzard, and you guys, I mean, you've been with Blizzard for how many years now?
15.
15 years. That is truly amazing. How incredible it must feel to still be at one place and feel this excited and still this inspired to create.
Well, I think that really speaks to the people that are on my team, the projects that I'm a part of. Like, I honestly was open to having this not be the path that I took. Like, I want to allow myself to, like, roll with changes.
Yeah.
But the team that I'm on, the people that I work with day to day, from everybody, like from my producers to my directors, every time I feel like I want something different from my job, they flex with me and help me find more creative fulfillment within my role there. And one of the things that I'm enjoying the most doing all this like lead character stuff is I get to art direct a lot of things and have my hand and my own touch within World of Warcraft. And I am working with the game team. It's not like the Jessica show. It's not even at all like that. I still am working within this game team, but I love World of Warcraft. I love elves. Yeah. Honestly, anything with elves, and I'm super stoked.
I mean, we can get into it. We don't have to, but I mean, I know you have a massive cosplay love and sort of like it's almost like another. I feel like it's another part of you outside of just. I mean, you're doing these things on your own in your own time.
Yeah.
Coming up with your own costumes, designing first, actually creating the materials themselves, and going into the next phase, which your Instagram and other things kind of play out. Creating compositions almost and photography and adding other elements to that and creating, real art through a camera lens essentially, but it's the same thing digitally, just in the real world, which has got to be so cool.
It's amazing what my super nerdy hobby has become, but also how it's really matured me and developed me as an artist. I see environments differently, and I understand lighting because I understand the lighting on a set or the lighting that you're going to get out in the real world, like what looks good. And so all of that real world stuff comes back to work with me very easily. Even if it isn't my job, I at least have like a very inherent understanding of what's going on. I feel really lucky that my team, because it's the movie making branch of Blizzard, like we're making all of these things, they've always really valued my design experience as a costume designer, because costume design is such an integral part of that whole pipeline. I know that it can be overlooked. The video game industry is so young. they've never really considered how reflective they are from the movie industry. And so here I am sitting being like, hey, guess what? Costume designers are absolutely integral to creating a world that speaks visually when people cannot touch it. Yeah. You know, the costume designers have been working in entertainment like as a profession since the days when people were on stage making plays. Like it's straight up olden time, pre-Shakespeare, all of this stuff.
Absolutely. Oh, and even if you were to bring up just the transition of, the CG industry and visual effects and how that took over the practical world, I mean, that's really where it all started, was practical. It was all about in-camera, real lights, building great materials, and spending a lot of time on that. And then that transitions into the 3D design world, which still very much gets into sketching and drawing and concepting, and then bringing that into a kind of just a different tool set, essentially. Yeah. But thinking that way seems to be like the most important thing in order to create an authentic brand or a quality that feels, lived in, right?
Yeah. Well, it's so funny to just kind of talk about the way that the decisions you make speak to people before you've said a single word. Yeah. Like in a video game, there are actual entire games that have no words, like Journey. And all of that visual design is telling you a story that they don't have to tell you in words. And I just think we have the opportunity to sit and think about these things. And then we also have so much to draw on from our ancestors in entertainment design, everything from the practical, we take sculpting classes. I think it's just so interesting to emphasize is just how important traditional skills are as a digital artist. And it's not something you should ever really ignore because they're friends. They shake hands. Right. Anything you do to develop yourself as an artist, to develop your taste or your sensibility is always going to aid you as an artist. And I feel so happy that my very nerdy self that was like Renaissance fairs and D&D and LARPs and stuff just happened to work out really well. I was just doing all of this character design for myself in costumes, and it's lended itself so that my character design is more strong as far as it's considered in 3D character modeling. Yeah. And character design is everything from having fabrics in your hands to just drawing a sketch on a piece of paper to a full-on 3D character. And art is art, which is really nice.
Truly. What came first for you? Was it your education and background into visual effects and this type of art, or did you actually you mentioned Renaissance fairs? I mean, growing up, I was acting in Renaissance fairs for 2 or 3 summers, and I learned how to fence. I learned all kinds of skills, and it was, I'm from Michigan, so small town of Michigan, Renaissance fair would come in town. So I had early adoption in introduction to these things, but did you have any experiences like that that stemmed from something?
Well, so I got into the Renaissance Fair because I was a competitive fencer in college and high school. Okay. And so the Renaissance Fair, one of the fencers that I had been with was like, come teach fencing at the Renaissance Fair. And I was like, oh, hey. And then they, put me in a costume, and I, developed my costume more and more from that. Honestly, like as far as art goes, every kid draws, and I was just that kid. And I made my own paper dolls and little tiny sculptures that I could then dress up. And for me, it was always about making characters that I could dress up, which is a very video game idea. Like, how long do you spend on the character creation screen when you're deep diving into like an RPG or something like that? It's a very important part of the game for me.
I mean, if a game doesn't have good character creation,
I love it so much. It's so indulgent. But I don't know, getting introduced to like Renaissance Fair was how I got introduced to making costumes. Okay. Because, you're dressing up as this thing, and it ends up being like, well, I think I could make that. And you start off with like making a skirt, and then it snowballs from there. Yeah. Sure. And really, like, you just ask yourself, do you think I could make this? Well, let me just try. And I think the only real obstacle for making costumes is money, because like, once you cut the fabric is going to be that shape. Oh, yeah. Well, then there's no undo button.
That's very true.
Yeah.
It's not very forgiving in that regard. So you need to be it teaches you patience and precision and all of those things.
Or accepting your mistakes and trying to pivot with the ways that you've effed up
Right.
which happens a lot.
Sure.
I love, actually, when it comes to costume design, I seldom do science fiction because precision is very key for good science fiction costumes. Or at least you want that clean, futuristic feel. Organic stuff is far more in the fantasy realm, and I love elves, so I stick around in the fantasy realm. And an organic costume that has like a very natural feel is very forgiving for things that you discover along the way. And with costume design, with character design, allowing yourself to discover something in the process is actually really valuable, because you might find your best ideas or the best inspiration when you're in the middle of it. And if you're trying to achieve something very specific, you might miss it.
Yeah.
And so I love organic approaches to design. I love, the D&D vibes to fantasy, where it's real and lived in and battle worn. And
Totally.
I really like those things. So I'm really drawn to all of that. But I definitely try to push myself outside my comfort zone. I'm about to deep dive in some sci-fi stuff thanks to Miss Monster Mel. She made this really epic cat sci-fi helmet.
Oh,
And I
no
got
way.
a blank of it.
Nice.
And so I'm going to put it all together, and I'm going to paint it.
That is so
And
exciting.
do some really cool
So
stuff.
this is your next project that
Yeah,
you're
this is
planning
my
on
my
through?
next big personal project.
What is the timeline? Like, how much time do you usually spend on a project like this? Like, coming up with the ideas to
So-
completion?
It depends. Sometimes I only give myself a week.
Okay.
Like, I think of the idea, I gather the materials, and then start to finish, like, maybe a week of time. Now that I have a kid, I have a lot less free time to, like, really deep dive, because you need, that creative flow thing, right? Or
Oh,
you
yeah.
need, like, that utter concentration to just, like,
Oh, trust me.
get stuff done. So I'm
Yep.
more like giving myself 3 months, because I don't have concentrated time.
Right.
And to re-immerse myself in an idea, to be able to make the right creative decisions for the project. If you pull yourself out of it often, you lose that flow.
Absolutely.
And so I got to like recapture it every single time. I don't know. We'll find out. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll use my Christmas break to like, have like work days
Right,
that are all just
sure.
costume work days, and like really get that sci-fi stuff. But I think I'll start off with like maybe a half an hour here and there, just designing out the lines of the costume.
Yeah.
The additional pieces that are gonna supplement like the cool helmet. Actually, I love that I've got these creative friends that I can have pieces and sort of celebrate their art as like the focal piece, and then create a character and a story and take it out into the world to make a scene or a feel, some real world story that sort of
Sure.
like props up their cool thing. I don't know.
That on that topic, it just brings to mind, a lot of what we're here representing with Magma and this idea of collaboration. And you kind of mentioned having to kind of put yourself into a position, like if you really want to be able to come up with great ideas. Number one, it is about, you could spend months and months, and I've spent literally years going back to projects and like wanting to perfect it and wanting to make changes to it. And a lot of it I've spent, and this is something I think about when I look at a tool like Magma that has this ability to connect. For example, there's 4 machines over here at the Wacom booth that are linked to these machines, and everybody's drawing on the same canvas, and you can
I love it.
interact. And honestly, I could look at just my own track record in design, and I spent a lot of time just kind of huddled in a corner, like not letting anybody look at it, and like not wanting to hear anybody's opinion. It's like I know what I need to do, and like I do it. And it took years to kind of work that out and get more comfortable with this idea of sharing. But the collaborative aspect is a really incredible way to kind of break away some of those lines and boundaries.
Yeah.
And use your friends and connect with people and work on something together. Is this like for you guys, for example, at Blizzard, do you guys, now that the remote work is kind of happening, the pandemic, how does it work for you guys on a collaborative aspect, and how important is it to be able to collaborate with other artists? on
Oh
a
man,
project?
production is none of this is mine. The concepts, the world is birthed by the video game team, right? They're deciding the world in which we are telling stories. My director is deciding what lore needs being told, and then while I'm working on these characters, I'm also trying to make sure that these characters are saying the things that the story needs to say that work for my animators, work for my rigging team. Working as a production artist is a collaboration the entire time. They asked me for some screenshots of some of my work, and I had this very real caveat. I'm like, none of this is just mine. Like, here you'll see all of my work in these movies. You're going to see, oh, well, I designed the suit for this one, and I designed this whole character here, but you're also seeing my work presented after it's gone through lighting and compositing from my very talented teammates, and then the animators. Like, my characters would do nothing without the animators breathing life into them, and it is only collaboration. So I love working from home. I love these meetings that we have because, I'll meet with the two people that are most important for me to meet with are my downstream folks, making sure that I'm delivering what they need. I have these meetings where I'm like, hey, we're just going to go over my model and we're going to talk base pose. Is it going to flex with all the poses and the movement that you could imagine them going in? How emotional is this performance? And am I giving you what will support that? And we, honest to goodness, sit with the model and draw lines, isolated edge loops and whatnot, trying to focus on what is going to get everybody to achieve the best possible results. Because if anything, what we try to do is make everything better than the last time we did it. And collaboration has been those meetings and hanging out with them while we're looking at artwork together.
Yeah.
And just sharing our thoughts, sharing our problem solving and making it work. I love working with the folks that I work with because I can present them with my questions, my ideas, the problems that I'm running into. And I know that they're going to give it thoughtful solutions or ideas, or they'll present me with the stuff that they're really worried about and thinking about, and I can give them solutions. It's been important working from home, even though I'm alone in my own office.
Yeah,
I'm not really alone. I'm just one little hangout
right.
away from all of them. I think the best thing about it is that I don't have to be pulled away from my work to go meet with anybody. I can still exist within my production flow. I could still be working on these things while listening to what people need, and I can, at the start of a meeting, be presented with something that needs addressing, and well before the end of the meeting already have it fixed and in their hands to what they need fixed. And it was impossible to do previously. We'd all have to break away from our desks and go to one of the meeting rooms to sort of discuss, and you might forget even a tiny detail from there to there and hope your producers had taken better notes than you did. And
yeah, absolutely. No, it just makes me think, I would imagine that you guys, compared to most companies, have probably been able to transition into this space working remotely and still being able to be so connected.
Yeah.
But it is one of those challenges in tech and design these days, is how to create more collaborative workspaces. And this new era, at least how things have been lately, and this need to be able to connect with people on a creative level, it seems like you guys are doing an amazing job of being able to figure this out and use the tools that you have. Is it what are the tools that you guys are connecting with and communicating through?
Well, Cinematics has not delayed any of our promised delivery dates. I mean, I hear these things in the meetings where we're we've achieved every single ship date that we've set out for ourselves, regardless of our work from home or transition back to office. All of these things, we're still delivering on time. And according to all metrics, people are even more productive working from home.
Yeah.
Taking away people's travel time to and from work is a big deal.
For sure.
That's I know people who plan out their days to every 15-minute increments, and losing a half an hour in the morning and a half an hour at night to just sit and drive safely to work is an hour that adds up over time. That's a lot of hours that you could be thinking, creating, or just managing your life so you don't have to worry about it later. Work from home, but then collaboration, you want to foster these really open communications with all your other artists and new artists. I've found this to be really helpful work from home. previously, when we would try to onboard a new artist, that artist is sitting at a physical desk that's quite some distance from my desk. So I'd have to pull them over, have them sit in their chair behind me while I show them stuff. But the view they have of what I'm doing is imperfect because it is from behind my shoulder. And I don't know about your eyesight, but my eyesight's not so great anymore. Sure. So working from home, I just share my screen. And I mean, internet latency aside, and there are ways around that as far as like streaming my workflow, but I will show them step for step everything that I'm doing to achieve certain technical hurdles and whatnot within our pipeline. And they're watching from the comfort of their desk my whole work screen, and it's such a better flow, and our focus is far more exact, and I can have 3 people shadowing me with the same view of what I'm doing versus people sitting around a desk trying to see the thing, and I'm getting all of their questions directly in my headphones without any background noise, and they're getting all of my answers immediately. I don't know. I've found that to be extremely rewarding, just being able to very easily share what I do, kind of not in bulk. 3 artists is the most I've ever had, like, following along with me. But I'm able to, like, bring them all up to speed at the same time without having to really steal them away from their desk, their space. It's easier to find time for these things.
I think that's such a good point. Those minor little details, I mean, even just you're mentioning looking over someone's shoulder. Also, I have found, at least in my experiences, working remote and working in design and working with companies and people, that I'm able to manage a lot more. Just like you said, just reducing the amount of time that I'm spending driving and traveling and, you know, having a conversation at the water cooler, the coffee machine. Like, as great as those things are, and they are amazing, I can have those conversations all the time. I end up having more conversations remotely. And it does seem to be, in tech, in design, there is a need to inspire more collaboration within these tools, right? Like, I mean, you know how it is when you're working in like, you want to show somebody, you know, a model of a, you know, people love ZBrush because everything looks good, sculpturally speaking, the surfaces look good, and you're looking at something that looks awesome. But if you're in like a production pipeline, you kind of have to get the models ready to present, right? And this idea of just having it in the tool and collaboratively being able to just be involved in it. And I mean, Magma allows you to, they're developing the feature to call people within the application is so amazing to me. Just that idea alone is exciting.
Annotation tools are super vital for the things that we do on every step of the production pipeline, and to be able to have like absolute control. So like, if our director looked at a scene and was like, oh, well, we need more fire bleed on this particular thing, within Magma, they could actually just do a layer with screen and toss in some red glow to like actually kind of show what they mean and to the intensity, and create like a very vital note screenshot that then could be one-to-one compared to the final composition for the shot. There's a lot of importance as artists to speak through art, and what we do and what we create, it cannot be reduced to words and notes in like a task. Right. It's very like, I'm always requesting, I need a screenshot of this. I need the shot. I need to see it. I need to see what you mean, because like sometimes it gets so precise that it's like angles, and so you really want to be seeing what they're seeing. And also within such a thing, I could propose different things quite quickly. And pitch different solutions to the idea that might achieve the same thing. But I know, as far as my production pipeline will go, that it would be easy to make that work. It's like, oh, I could do this very easily, very cheaply. No one downstream is super impacted, and it might look like this. And they can buy off on that pretty easily when they've got it visually facing them. Most all art directors and directors I know are visual people in my industry, and they respond really well with seeing what they're going to get. And I mean, I'm constantly having to hone my abilities as a 2D artist to be able to speak these things really quickly to them. Because the end image isn't my 3D model. It's my 3D model on a screen that somebody is viewing in 2D, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. No, so that's a very good point. I think it's just really interesting to think about the interactions that you're having with people and these conversations on a production level, dealing with art directors, dealing with many opinions and ideas that get fused into one, and that's pretty much all of your babies. Like, it's all of your work, right? And you guys sort of share this responsibility with, you're overseeing, teams of people to help develop these ideas. So how do you, I guess on the topic of creative health, it seems like a lot of your life experience and the practices that you carry in and outside of work keep you going. But what advice do you have for artists out there to just be able to maintain their creativity and to stay excited and inspired?
Oh man, that's a really good one. I hear about and constantly talk to artists that are finding some level of burnout and just trying to take really good care of yourself, especially if you're the person that's making creative decisions for your job and everybody's depending on you to come up with something that's interesting and creative to solve whatever visual story or production challenge that you're coming up with. You gotta take time as an artist to experience the world so you can bring that back to your computer. Eventually, if you're only spending your time indoors on a computer, the experience well within you is going to run dry, and you're not going to feel as motivated or passionate about these ideas as you would if you had spent maybe an afternoon watching a sunset and really letting yourself see the light, see the environment, and you'll bring that with you to the next project that comes into that. I feel these experiences that make you unique as an artist are really important to continue building. For me, I do a lot of traditional art, and I know that it feeds back into my digital art really, really well, but that traditional art, the act of doing it with my own hands and seeing it and all the mistakes that come along with traditional art has been really important to me. And they're also keeping me honed, at least my dexterity is still pretty high. But also going out and discovering new locations within California or wherever I'm traveling. I'm so inspired by nature, by mountains and deserts and geography. It's just, there's nothing that beats actually going out and in it and really just letting yourself see it without your phone in your hand, without trying to take a picture, just trying to remember it and let yourself just experience it, the feel of it, because when you're trying to evoke these feelings in your art later on, you've got to pull on something tangible. Yeah, I find.
Yeah, that's so true. We were kind of talking about this before we started, and this is something I've always struggled with, is when you get in, especially our generation coming into this industry. I think it's a little different for Gen Z and younger people coming in, or maybe not. It might still be the same, but there's just so many different ways to create stuff now.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of YouTube education. There's a lot of, visionaries that are out there making content, people that we all idolize and follow. But sometimes it's hard to just get out of your own way. You kind of get caught up in, I struggled with for a long time, just wanting to replicate. And I still have this struggle. And trying to get out of my own way and actually kind of put my own ideas out can be challenging. And
yes.
What are the practices it seems like just learning to disassociate yourself from a particular goal and just try to live in the moment is kind of the trick, right?
We don't often give ourselves, at least as professional artists, an opportunity to make art just for the sake of making art. Making something, doing something for the sake of just doing it. You're not going to sell it. You don't even have to show someone, but just selfishly making something beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think you find a lot about yourself in those moments. And you grow a lot more than if you were trying to be, I'm going to do exactly like this person. And honestly, you're going to learn a lot from imitating somebody. But it's really, really important to know what you love. As an artist, you have a limited amount of time to make wonderful things on this earth. And once you've passed the stage of figuring out how to make something, then you have to decide what it is you want to add to the universe, to the world? Like, what artistic thing do you want to spend your mastery on? I mean, mastery I use with quotes, but I mean, what do you want to spend your talent on? And you eventually are going to have to make these choices. And if you have never once indulged yourself as an artist to make something entirely selfish, how can you make that choice for your next career move? Because you'll be presented with this company, and this company, and they're all great with cool projects. But which one speaks to you? And if you've never listened to yourself, that might end up putting you on a project where you're going to discover burnout. Where you're just going to be like, wow, I feel really empty. I'm giving it my all, but none of this is coming out of me easily. I have to like pull teeth to make this work for me. And it's super good to go outside of your comfort zone. Trust me, you're going to learn so much. But you also want to know, what is it you're drawn to? If you're drawn to like predators and aliens, like, oh my God, deep dive into that stuff and find that dream studio where you're like, if I spend the next 10 years doing this gruesome stuff, I will be the happiest person on the planet. And then maybe your art soul tells you something different later on. But, you know, your personal projects are going to tell you where your passion lies. And you should do as many no-pressure personal projects as you possibly can.
I think that's such a good way of putting it. I have these conversations with friends all the time, like especially in you know this, being so involved in the 3D output in cinematics, and a lot of us came up on we were inspired by a lot of the same things. I loved science fiction and fantasy growing up. I couldn't tell you how many times I've watched and read Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and all the classics. I lived on it. And coming up in that age and being an early adopter of 3D, I was doing it in high school. And for me, my generation, like 2005, I graduated. So nobody I knew was learning ZBrush and Maya. I was at like a community college learning how to do this stuff on the side. I went there to learn comic book drawing. And then I saw a guy in the corner doing 3D, and it just clicked. It was like I immediately wanted to do it. Toy Story and Pixar were kind of just becoming popular, but since then, I guess pop culture has become such a driving factor to create things, right? We make things that we love, and that is amazing. But I have found that has also been a roadblock for me to be creative in my own ways. And before I was doing any of those things or learned these skills, and these skills I associated with production and output, making video games, making movies. That's what people use these skills for. But you see all these other amazing things that people are doing. You go, why am I not doing that? And I say that to myself, and I see a lot of other people replicating things. And like you said, there's much to be learned in replication. But I guess what you were saying just made me think that when I was at my purest form of creativity was when I would just draw and draw and draw. I'd sit in my room, I would draw. I wouldn't even paint sometimes. I would just sketch in pencil on my white walls. I would just draw things. And my mom would come down in my hallway. It was like going by the laundry room. So she'd have to look at all my sketches. I bet
you she loved it, though.
I mean, she did. She at least appreciated it. But I could tell there was times where she was like, oh, my God.
The walls again.
This is getting ridiculous. And I do like charcoal stuff. And I'd like get into pastels. But this idea of just being able to draw and just freely do it, not for any output, not to share. Social media and sharing is important, collaboration is important, but it almost seems like just sitting down to do it just because you want to do it is the fulfilling part that actually makes you maybe a more talented and a better artist.
Yeah. Well, like the things that you're doing when you've got no pressure is it's good for your soul. It's gonna make you better no matter what. Like, no, everything you do as an artist makes you a better artist, so long as it's like healthy, obviously. I'm like, you can certainly do a lot of things that'd be terrible for you as an artist. Jessica, what are you saying? But there's so many things about just like the pure enjoyment and love of art that we don't give ourselves permission. The more often you turn that part of you down, the smaller it gets until it no longer tugs for your attention and it's gone. You need to feed the heart of you once in a while,
Yeah.
or it will stop asking for attention and you will just be making everything for everybody else except for yourself. And you will find a point where you've given everything that you had and there's not a lot left, and maybe your voice will be lost, or maybe you won't have something unique to offer everyone else. And I think as an artist, it's important to pay attention to who you are, like the child in you that loved to take what was in your head and put it on paper. Like cherish that side of you and indulge it as often as you can. It's good for you.
Yeah.
And it's going to make decision-making process in your actual production work more inspired.
Yeah.
And I mean, inspiration is the lifeblood of creativity. And you always want to just find ways to feed that as much as possible. And saying yes to that inner artist part of yourself is really healthy. The more often you're like, well, I just don't have time for that, eventually it'll stop. You'll stop noticing.
You kind of really have to make time for that.
You do.
I mean, I think that's the source of every, in a nutshell, every creative block. Any person that goes through a creative block or issues with being able to, even just find joy and happiness in making stuff. Because I think it can get repetitive, just doing stuff that you see all the time, and you stop feeling that excitement. It's fun at the beginning, but then eventually it kind of just starts to feel like a job, you know? And
it's a job. It's a wonderful job. And finding new ways to feel passionate about the work is very important. I love my job. I love every day of it, but it still is a job. There is a job aspect to it. It can be arduous or repetitive in all these different ways. But that's why I supplement with my selfish endeavors and some that no one will ever see. Like a lot of my just painting stuff. No one's getting to see those. They are terrible sometimes.
You're not letting anybody.
No, it's not Instagram worthy, but maybe it is. Maybe more artists need to be open with their failures.
Yeah, I would love personally to see more of that. Honestly, I've found that the bar has gotten so high, it becomes hard to, I don't know, it's just like amazing pieces of work. Like I'm able to, I have friends that are like, maybe jaded a little bit on just seeing amazing pieces of work everywhere. It's like the top rows of the world and the top art stations and all that. It's like, oh yeah, that's cool. And it's like, no, that's like still amazing. Like, it's always amazing. It never stopped being amazing, but it's just like the floodgates open up and you're always seeing amazing things. It's like, I like to see the stuff that's unfinished and the stuff.
I love work in progress.
Yeah. Truly.
But I also can see a work in progress thing and know that it's on a journey to be someplace else. So I at least have that capacity. I mean, when you open yourself up to the internet and you provide something that's unfinished, sometimes people will believe and judge you not for the potential of the idea, but be like, oh, that's a piece of crap.
Yeah.
And so you kind of want to protect yourself. Like, we're artists. We're very sensitive.
Yes, for sure.
We take rejection very seriously.
Yeah, I mean, it's a part of the job, but it still sucks,
I don't know. I actually, not to bring it back to the program that we're working in, but that's actually why I like this. I've got my little art space, and I share it with people I trust.
Sure.
That I can have them look at my work in progress. And they're the people that I would sit at a table and draw with. Yeah. Where we would all be like, oh, well, what if da-da-da idea? And we would all draw together and see what they're doing and maybe incorporate the idea or whatnot together. But sitting at a table and drawing with my friends is one of the purest forms of me enjoying time with another person.
Yeah.
I think it stems, like, my dad would fold a paper in half and, like, we'd draw the bottom and the top of a monster or whatever, right?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's very much so those vibes. Like, but sitting and drawing with my friends is just, I could spend hours doing that. And actually, one of my D&D friends just walked by. Yeah, Priscilla, she's got a booth here. But, like, my cool. D&D group is 3 artists in it. And then...
So it's 4 of you?
But, like, 2 people that also love drawing but aren't professional artists. But there's, like, 3 professional artists in the group. 2 people that love drawing and draw often. And then, like, 1 who composes music and writers, like, tons of... Like, the group is
cool.
7 people. But it's so deeply creative and really, really fun to allow ourselves to tell these low-stakes, no one's buying this content.
Yeah,
we don't.
right.
But like we're creating it together, and we're all equally invested in making these things together.
Yeah.
Just sitting at the table creating with others is real and pure joy, and in a childish way where I don't have to sell it. We don't have to sell it, but it's like,
No, it just
our character,
is.
your character, my character. Ooh, what if they kiss?
Yeah.
Stupid stuff. Like, I love telling stories with friends, and for me, I tell stories artistically. For some of them, they write and come up with these immense and epic, like saga type ideas, and it's it's really enjoyable. And this program has actually been like a real boon for being able to on the same page, make things together.
Yeah, it has re-inspired a part of me that I've been thinking about it a lot this weekend. I mean, we're just starting Lightbox, and we're surrounded by all these amazing companies, and Magma being one of them. But I don't know. This is something I don't spend enough time doing myself, and it does get me excited even thinking about the possibility of like just jumping into a hangout session and like just not really caring. Like, let's just have fun and goof around. And I used to do these like little doodles in, elementary school that like, I would kind of turn them into like a little collaborative thing where like I would always draw a dragon at the top of the page. And there would always be like a scenario playing out. All the little stick men would have to be somehow finding a way to take down the dragon. And each drawing was different. It was like somebody's got like a harpoon, like shooting like an arrow with a string on it. And there's like guys like on a helicopter. And it would just be like, kids like drawing on a notebook. And we would do that like, on a piece of line paper.
Yeah.
And I never really imagined what that would be like. I became, I got into the industry as a professional and learning Photoshop and all these other tools. It kind of took away the part from, like, as you've been mentioning pretty much throughout this whole conversation, the innocence of it. The innocence of collaboration is very, very pure.
Yeah.
And I kind of haven't really thought about that for quite a long time, which is so cool to see so many great artists that are going to be presenting here this weekend that are doing this kind of stuff and promoting this idea and then using the tool to create all kinds of things using AI and collaborating with concept artists. It's just, there's so many possibilities in this particular area.
It really is. I like how technology is giving us a little bit of wings to do more and be more and say more and be and, I don't know, hang out with other artists and make stuff. I've actually been on the Discord for Magma, like watching all the different like shared sketch groups that folks have, or the morning inspiration.
Yes.
Like one.
I saw those.
There's some really cool stuff. I mean, right now I've got a friend that is going through animation class, and so he has to do gesture drawing, and I'm like, gesture drawing's hard and it sucks.
Yeah.
And it's really hard because you're given no time to like accomplish anything. So I'm like, hey, I have got a 15-minute break. Let's just do some gesture drawing. We put on like a YouTube video of gesture poses, and we just like go. And I'm like, it's your homework. Let's just get it done. 15 minutes. Pull that Band-Aid off. But like doing so together. And so then we also just like keep that art space open within Magma that we can then go back the next time we have 15 minutes just to do gesture stuff, and it's all on top of each other.
Yeah.
And I've been drawing a lot longer. I don't know if it is helpful for him to watch me approach and how I approach a gesture, because I am certainly not doing it 100% right according to my teachers. Ron Hubbard was my gesture teacher, and
wow.
I know.
Okay,
right?
I get it.
Yeah, so like I'm doing it real wrong compared to him. He's just like brilliant when it comes to like impactful pose, idea, and motion, and just like portraying so much so quickly. But we're both doing something super duper healthy and encouraging each other. It's like going to the gym and having a gym buddy.
Yeah.
Like
for sure.
I have my sketch buddy, and it's doing the healthy things
That's
for
a great way
you
to put it.
together.
Yeah.
And like you're in it together, and you're seeing what you're doing, and then you're kind of excited to do the next day.
Yeah.
Or the next little bit, you know, and having these sessions. And that's just like one aspect that I've done and using Magma.
That's super cool. I look forward to doing more of that myself and being able to join in.
With what time, sir?
Well, honestly, I've had a lot of free time lately, and I'm not using it enough.
Ooh.
I've been spending all this time thinking about what things I want to work on, what things I want to build, and sometimes I don't leave enough time to sketch and do that stuff. I feel like that's a good thing to slot into like the morning routine, or make a point to make that a regularly scheduled event.
Well, have your coffee and sketch.
Totally.
And invite somebody to like hang out while you do it. And honestly, everybody's everywhere in the whole wide world, right? The most social time that I get with my friends is while we're all on together on Discord playing D&D one evening a week. Well, it's really easy to invite one of your friends over to your own art space on Magma and just be like, hey, no pressure, tiny little hangout, little thing. They don't have to leave their house. They don't have to even leave their computers. They can everybody gets to have a 15-minute break. That is labor law, right? And they could spend it with you. And it's that time at the water cooler. Mm-hmm. It's a step away from the problems of your day-to-day job just to like do something together with a friend. I'm a do stuff with friends to spend quality time person. That's how I function.
D&D, I mean, that is like to the fullest. Like, honestly, I'm so jealous. I actually never got into D&D, but it seems like such an incredibly enriching and fun experience.
It is.
And you've been doing it for how long?
My first D&D game was in '94.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
Yeah, it's been. I mean,
Still
not to say that. No,
that would be.
It's not to say that I'm like an amazing player. My friends are amazing players. Like I'm friends with all the Critical Role folks, and I once upon a time played with them. But now they're too famous playing it to have time. Well, I mean, they're running an entire business, and they've got an animation, and they're doing super duper cool stuff. And meanwhile, I've got like my little powwow group with my art friends and the person who's the musician. Like, I like it because I like telling stories. I'm in my head a lot, to be honest. Like, I'm always in my head just thinking up ideas and stories, and it just presents me with like a mildly directed location to like imagine stuff. I really find a lot of value in it. And I've had a lot of different groups that'll play. Like, my friend Caddy runs a mean game of Traveler, which is like the whole point is the time in between your like where you are and your destination while you're on a spaceship. And so it's just as important, the journey to get there, as it is whatever star system you're arriving at.
That's really cool.
I don't know. I love these games, but I love sitting and making up stories with my friends. I love making art with my friends. Like, while I play a game, I'm always drawing something. And so being able to share my sketchbook with them that they could add stuff to is just another layer of sharing these joyful stories with each other.
Yeah, I feel like the message of the day is make art with your friends, and you'll feel a lot better for it, and you'll probably be a much better artist.
It's true. Honest to goodness, yeah.
Yeah. I think those are good words to end on. It's been a pleasure to get to know you more. And we have more presentations. You're going to be doing more interviews today.
Yes.
We're going to jump to, I believe we have Jonathan coming up here in a minute.
Yeah.
And,
Jonathan Hardesty with some portraiture.
That's going to be super exciting.
I love portraits.
You're going to be perfect to sit down and talk to him. All right, we'll let him get started, and all you folks that are tuned in, give us a minute, and we'll be jumping right in.
Right on.
Thanks again, Jessica.
Yeah, thanks, Solomon.